This is Regenerative Skills, the podcast helping you to learn the skills and solutions to create an abundant and connected future. I'm your host, Oliver Gaucher. Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Season 10 of the Regenerative Skills podcast. Now, it's still unbelievable to me that I've been keeping this up for almost 10 years. And as I mentioned at the end of last year, this season is going to bring some big changes to the format. So one of the biggest changes is that we're switching from the previous schedule of weekly episodes to every 2 weeks. For those who've been listening for a while, you'll be happy to know that we're keeping the panel session format, where I speak to 3 different people with different perspectives on a single subject that's central to the conversations going on in the climate farmers community. The second and the new format that I'll be trying out is what I'm calling deep dive episodes, the first of which will kick off 2 weeks from today. The intention behind those is to bring complexity back into the conversations around regenerative agriculture. I know that myself and many of my peers have been observing the discourse online, and especially on social media, devolve into catchphrases and buzzwords with little meaning. And I want to embrace the complexity and the many perspectives around the topics that get debated online. We'll be testing out a mix of investigative journalism, key interview snippets, and narrative weaving, not to assert a single stance on any issue, but rather to guide listeners through the fact that there are rarely any easy answers, and that there's so much more to these conversations than the oversimplified arguments that we gloss over on clickbait titles and polarizing debates. But we'll save that one for the next episode. For today, I want to explore a topic that often gets swept under the rug. Mental well-being, or the lack of it, in farming communities has reached epidemic levels. Farmers in Europe face a nasty mix of chronic overwork and poor recovery, high uncertainty and low control in their work, and heavy admin and compliance pressure, often while working in social isolation with a culture that can discourage help seeking. Those pressures stack and reinforce each other, which means less sleep and more stress lead to worse decisions and more conflict and injuries and tighter finances and even less time off. All of this drives burnout and anxiety and depression, and in some contexts, even elevated suicide risk. The stress factors for farmers are only increasing as well, as weather variance and economic pressure and bureaucratic stress and social factors all mount up. For this reason, my hope in this panel session is to shed some light on mental health and some ways to avoid burnout in the upcoming season from a number of different perspectives. Now, since our panelists will introduce themselves, let's just jump right into this session. All right, well, welcome back, everybody, to our panel series. This is a production from the Climate Farmers Academy that is designed to answer the question and explore the topics that are the point of focus of our farmer community. Now, we're constantly talking about the difficulties of transitioning to regenerative management, all of the other things that are difficult and constantly changing in the world of agriculture. And one that is particularly relevant is what I thought to start off the 2026 season of the series on, which is this idea that we're all overworked. And it's not just farmers. I'm sure that anybody who's joining from a different sector can also relate to this feeling that there's just so much pressure and stress around our work lives. And this can be compounded by events around the world, things that are happening in our personal and emotional lives, and the result often leads up to burnout. And specifically for farmers, this has become a growing problem for decades as financial instability, weather variances, policy, and bureaucracy are constantly mounting. We've seen recent protests in the streets and in different places around Europe. A lot of farmers are kind of at their end, And so we thought to explore this from a number of different perspectives, of course, from farmer perspectives, as we always do here, but also from professionals in the field of psychology and counseling that can help us to navigate this from a professional perspective and maybe open up some new opportunities that we hadn't been considering otherwise. So to get us started, maybe, Hedy, could you start with an introduction about what it is you do and how it is you work with farmers around this topic?
Sure. My name is Hedy, and I'm a holistic occupational therapist. And at the moment, I actually work with Abunda with the human dimension, the psychology lead side. And what we do is actually build partnerships that last. And we do that through actually also involving what most people forget, which is the human side. We do that through partnership dynamics and communication and conflict mitigation. Yeah, so that's a little bit about that.
Very glad to have you here. And Ole, can you give us a bit of introduction on how you come into this topic and what it is you do for work?
Yes, I can. Hello, climate farmers. My name is Olaf Feiger. I'm from the Biohof Großdüssel, close to Düsseldorf in Germany. We do organic veg, meat, egg, and honey production. We do some teaching for kids for the Waldorf school that's close by, where my mother is also teaching. When I'm saying we, I mean my mother, my brother, and I, we are running this farm here. We have one full-time employee who's doing a lot of the machine work and a lot of the labor with the animals and stuff like this. And yeah, we're doing a lot of different things at the same time. We're also doing a chicken on tour, which is a chicken rental business, which we have been doing for 5 years now. So people can rent 4 chickens, a house, a fence, and everything that they need for 2 to 6 weeks. And they pay us quite a bit of money for that so that they can experience how it is to have some chickens for some time, which is a lovely thing and yeah, works quite well here in Germany. And this is a business that's been working quite well for us, and we've been like trying to reduce the amount of hours that we have to work. We've been doing some restructuring in the last year to basically cut 40 work hours out of that business and still make the same amount of profit by just restructuring and taking away the deliveries. So we already did a lot of re-evaluating there and changed a lot on the farm so that we reduce the workload there. Now we're trying to do the same thing for the farm. We've been up and going since 2023. We started officially with the organic farm here on our new farm, and we've been struggling. Let's call it like it is for the last few years now, because my mother is still a full-time teacher, but she's also doing a lot of the administration on the farm. My brother is doing a lot of the administration, but also a lot of the physical work. I'm doing a lot of the physical work and management in the garden as well, and there's just a lot of different projects that we're trying to accomplish at the same time. And for the last year, it's been feeling a lot like we're trying to get to all the fires at the same time when they're trying to pop up. And it's less of a managed thing where we know we're going and this is the routine and this is the SOPs that we are having. So we're trying to do a lot in that direction in this season. Try to get less out of this firefighting mode and more into this mode of, okay, we're just doing a structured production and we already know what we're going to do tomorrow. Yeah, so that's a little introduction for me.
Thank you.
We're feeding about 200 families at the moment.
Excellent. And our third speaker today is Michaela. Would you like to tell us about yourself and what brings you into this topic?
Well, thank you, Oliver. And yeah, it was a fire putting down joining this. We had a little bit problems with that, but here we are. Yeah, I'm pleased to be here with Hedi and Ole, and my journey to this point and why I was probably requested. I've been working with farms in the beginning of my career, with smaller ones, with bigger ones. And now I'm a farm owner, and we are part of the transition program for climate farmers. But I think the main point for my role today is I've had 2 roles side by side all my working career. I'm a yoga teacher, and I run a healing center, a gathering center in Nuuksio, a national park. And at the same time, I've been working with the food sector, mainly with meat industry, but now with food exports. So kind of I'm looking at the whole system, I hope, not only farming. Then I'm not the right person. Thanks, we have Ole here. So I think we'll have a nice evening.
Thank you, Michaela.
Thanks.
We have a unique opportunity in this panel to frame it a bit as much as a narrative as a discussion of particular questions in and of themselves. And so Ole was nice enough to use himself as an example because I think it's very representative of some of the stresses and the difficulties that can cause burnout. So Ole, what you told us already, for me, makes it very evident why it is you've reached burnout. You've taken on so much on your farm, and you're balancing this with managing some of the people that come in and out. Your mother, as you use as an example, is working full-time plus part-time for the farm. Everybody's stretched pretty thin, but can you give us an insight into what it is that causes stress or burnout in your team or for you specifically?
Yes, so I've written down basically my recipe for burnout and lower back pain, which I've been really successful in cooking up this season. I think we all have in this season, especially here on the farm, because as I said, we're still in the build-up phase of the farm, which is always a stressful time. I've heard like year 5, it starts to get easier. So we're still very much in the phase of building up all the infrastructure. As an example, last year, during the season in April, we built 2 more caterpillar tunnels for our cucumbers because we didn't have any space for them and they were already there. We couldn't get them in the field, but it was unclear if we would get the planning permission, and there were a lot of different things that were not clear yet because we hadn't done the planning in the winter. So one of the main factors that I keep coming back that really broke our neck a little bit this season was not having a full financial plan for the season, not having a full work plan. We did work with microfarm planner to get the crop plan in for the market garden so that we know when do we need to seed which things, which has already improved the productivity in the market garden by a lot. And it's way easier to know now what needs to be done the next day, reducing the mental load a little bit. But we definitely need to work more with the microfarm planner to really plan it. We did the planning in the winter, all good and well. We had a lot of time in the winter and we're planning with our winter time and our winter time availability. And then you come to the summer and there's a lot of different projects going on. And then all of a sudden you have to do what you planned for the 24-hour day. You have to do now a 70-hour day. And then you have a long work list and it keeps getting longer. So you say to yourself, okay, I should just do a 6 to 7 day work week, which honestly, a lot of us do when it is needed. I'm pretty sure none of us are lazy people here in this call who are like, yeah, no, I'm just gonna slack off. We all know that to-do list and how it's growing. But to really look at it long-term, 6 to 7 day work week does not work if you do not take rest days. So I heard the phrase athletes in overalls again and again, which I think is very fitting because, yeah, if you look at what athletes are doing, they're training 2 to 3 days high intensity a week. Then they're taking 2 days for cardio and maybe then 1 to 2 days of recovery. Farmers are also often doing more than 3 days of the high intensity workout. And then on the next day, there is still something to do. And then on the Sunday, you see something while you're walking through the garden. And all of a sudden it's sundown and you have worked another 5 hours on Sunday while you said you wanted to take a free day. So yeah, I've been doing that a lot, saying this season that I would take my free days, but I didn't actually take them. So this has to really change for this season, that it's clear for everybody on the farm and clearly communicated who has their free day on which day, so that it's also clear who is responsible on that day. So that on a free day, you actually can switch off your phone and you are not reachable, and it's okay for everybody else on the farm. Generally, this communication part about when you have the fitness, when you are able to work hard, and also communicating early enough with the rest of the team members when you know you're already declining in your back health, for instance, or your mental health is suffering because there you've been just going and feeling like you're in it alone, which of course is not true. I'm doing it with a team. But sometimes when you're standing on the field there in the middle of the night and still collecting eggs while it's dark because you didn't get to it in the daytime, sometimes it feels a bit alone, and then it can really help to have this connection with other people, with our customers. They're coming in and telling us each week how amazing our products are, which is really like nourishing the soul a lot, which is really helping a lot to feel that value of being a farmer, having that little chat with the people that are coming by the field and seeing how the field transformed over the years is giving a lot of that appreciation back, and it's really helping with, making this feel like a good and really good endeavor. But at the same time, it is a really hard endeavor. So we have to make sure that we're not working 6 to 7 days a week. Otherwise, it's gonna break our neck. Last year, we also scaled up very quickly with our deliveries. We started vegetable deliveries, and I was basically starting the Tuesday, harvesting everything, washing everything, getting everything ready for the store, packing the boxes, putting the boxes in the car, driving my delivery route, and then I'm home at like 9:30, walking my dog, falling into bed, starting next morning, 6:30 again for the next harvest. I mean, we're already still lucky. We have a really diverse working field. We have a lot of different tasks here on the farm. I'm not the standard farmer with 15-hour workdays, just corn harvest. At least I'm lucky for that. There's a lot of different work tasks, but because we're small, we also have to do a lot of human power. So shoveling compost by hand instead of the tractor. We're quite small, so we cannot afford to get all the infrastructure that we actually would need, like the good wash pack station and stuff like this. So it's slowly building. And I've been sometimes struggling with this, looking at the to-do list of the day and then just seeing all the things that need to get done and all this complexity of, if we decide something for the chicken on tour, then we have to also make sure that it fits for the farming context and for the family context. This complexity makes it really hard to plan during the season. So again, taking this recovery time in the winter and actually saying, we can't do anything on the field, so let's not stress about it. Let's really sit down, do the season planning. We're talking a lot in the family, how we're gonna do the season, how we're gonna change, if we're gonna do veg deliveries, if they're even profitable. We're doing all the business plans, trying to figure out which parts of the enterprises are profitable, which makes sense to continue, which should we scale up, and which should we scale down. So really trying to evaluate before the season to reduce the stress already. Yeah. So that's a little bit about that. Maybe somebody else wants to jump in now.
Ole, that's a fantastic insight into the amount of complexity that you're navigating and how easy it is to fall into overwhelm when there's so many stacked obligations on top of each other, especially in certain periods of the year. I want to go to Hedy now. I'm curious in reflection to the story that Ole has given us, how that tracks with your experience speaking with so many different farmers and understanding the stresses and the difficulties that they face.
Yeah, so where to start? So something I see that is very common is that farmers tend to be unstoppable. They just move forward and they don't stop until something physically stops them, like winter, when it's impossible to actually move. So they keep burning out that way. So you're actually mentioning it yourself, Ole. You put on so much weight, but you're also aware that you have to take time off to actually come back to that same energy levels. But what I find interesting is that people tend to think that it's a lot of the physical and a lot of the economical, all the other stuff that is outside of our body and outside of our control that is why we burn out. That's not my experience. My experience, and that's not just with farmers, it's with every human being that has a consciousness. We tend to burn out because we spend all of our energy fighting the past that we can't change or worrying about a future we can't control. Being in that mindset, we're stuck in the middle. We are buried in thoughts that we cannot change, we cannot do anything about them. So we freeze in that moment instead of finding or creating solutions or even listening to our own bodies. We get stuck in our heads worrying. And that just builds up because that takes away time instead of giving more. And we think that thinking so much gives us more time at the end because we might get to a solution, but not with the way we do it.
And Michaela, how about yourself? Listening to Ole and then your own experiences on the farm and with other members of your team, how does this track with the difficulties that you face and the people who come to you for assistance?
Well, first of all, I think I could use some examples here, could use some earlier examples here as well. The regenerative community and this size of the farms are newer to me. And I think it's very interesting to hear you, Ole, because at some point I was consulting the biggest pig units in Finland, which were big 1,000 sow units. And the burnouts were not from the same reasons I can hear from you, Ole. There was a lot of weight, and I could also see a lot of struggle financially, but also pressure from the earlier generations of how it's always been done and it's how it's supposed to be done. And here I see more the passion which is driving you. And the passion is driving, so it's like on more regenerative focus in how you want to do. Like I really see when you talk, you love what you do, right? And
Yes, so we're lucky that we're first generation farmers. So my mother,
yes,
my brother, and I, we decided we want to do this. So we don't have this backlog of this is how we used to do it. So we can come in with new ideas, which is helpful,
yes.
but also hard.
And this is interesting because the big farms, they have a heavy load of a lot of the farmers didn't choose to continue. And I think this is an interesting discussion here we have in that. And as I see from my yoga students as well, I have a lot of burnout or mothers with busy lives, young kids. And the same is here. You want to give so much, yet there is only one you. But what I could say that helped me and have helped a lot of my yogis was that we start to think about that love is a space that you create to somebody else to become themselves. And that's what you're doing probably with your team, with your family. And we are doing that at Climate Farmers as well. But what we are not really good at is creating that space inside of us. And my question to you, Ole, would be that when you said you actually have the team, but then you kind of need to be there. You need to be there. You want to be there. So could you think about it that could you create the space for your team to take care of you? And I think this is what we like people who think about the future or wanna work with open heart have a lot of difficulties with. We want to give, and give. But how it would feel for the other people of the team to really, when you say that, I'm so tired, will you take care of me? Like, will you do this? You would create them a space to love you. But I don't know, do you do that? Please tell me. I would love to hear.
So since I'm farming with my family, I'm quite lucky in that regard that there's already a closer bond there than there might be with somebody you just started working with. So I already get a lot of care there, but also from our customers since they're seeing us each week and they might see me like, yeah, hobbling over the farm because I pulled my back again or something. And they will ask about how my back is doing when they see me next week. And one of our clients is a physiotherapist, and we're trading some vegetables for physiotherapy sessions so that I actually get some care that way. One of our clients is doing the acupuncture, and she saw me being in pain and just came up with the needles and was like, "You want some needles in your ear?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? If it helps." So by having built this small community of 200 families roundabout that are fed from our vegetables each week and are coming each week with the subscription, this already builds or made them closer than standard customers would be, so that there's already some help in the team. So we have one guy who's doing a lot of the work. When he sees that I'm not eating well in the times when my family is away, he will bring me some food sometimes and make sure that I'm doing well. And also in the team, when we have co-workers, last year we had a co-worker in Chicken Tour, we would always make sure that they're well taken care of, but they're also asking how we are doing. So we're trying to create the opportunity for this common love and common taking care of each other. But we're not a big team.
So, from everything that's been said so far, I'm under the impression, and also because of many other people's contributions in the community about how they deal with burnout, that some of this stems from an inability, either perceived or real, to set some boundaries on how far you're not willing to go, either physically or mentally, or, those break down when you build it up in your head that, oh, I could just do this one last thing, or I could work a few more hours and then it won't be an issue tomorrow. Maybe, Hetty, you can start by addressing the root of this. Why is it so hard to set boundaries in these contexts, and what are some steps that might be able to be taken in order to reinforce them or actually observe them?
Yeah, well, it's hard for a lot of people to set boundaries, and that stems from different things because we all react differently to the emotions we have. But usually it's to either avoid that we don't want to feel misunderstood or feel like we're a burden or feel like we're too much or asking for too much or being difficult or rejecting others or being not the person who says yes, or we feel like if we put up boundaries, we will be a disappointment, basically. That's the feeling most people have. So they feel like it's hard to put up boundaries because they have an inner fear most of the time of being abandoned from setting those boundaries, that people will not accept that they have boundaries, that they have to be compliant and always say yes and always be available. And if they're not loving those people. They mix putting up boundaries with not loving. It's not the same because when you put up boundaries, you are doing what you're supposed to. You're loving yourself. By loving yourself, you are putting boundaries up to protect yourself, not to reject others, not to abandon others. So if that's what others feel, it's not real. But that's what we believe because we lose the ability to believe in ourselves. So we continue to please other people. And we do that to survive, not alone. So we keep having that community because we give so much of ourselves and expect nothing back. And even if we do expect anything back, it's so little that we settle for the bare minimum because we have such a hard time asking for help and even harder receiving that help when it's there.
And everything you just said really landed for me. I feel that that's something I struggle with. Many of the people that are in our community really have issue with. And I mean, it comes from a good place, right? Like trying to give and provide and care for others, but often forgetting to do the same for ourselves. Michaela, does that track with your experience as well? Do you have any ideas on how to reinforce boundaries or set them up in the first place so that you can take care of yourself in this process too?
Wow. Yes. And have I been struggling with them? Wow, so many years. And I think that's one of the things we need to really, really work on, because the people who join regenerative communities or whatever we are doing, trying to operate on another level, the heart is open. Yet we have forgotten how to live in communities, how to help each other. And just I had an indigenous wisdom keeper visiting here in Espoo last autumn, and she made me realize how far actually we are. We are always connected with the nature, but we have forgotten that. And even like in this community, like we need to understand that if we cannot disagree and be a failure, be a disappointment, we will not evolve. We will not go forward. And I think that's also kind of, we have 1 year behind us with Lisa is actually their wife of Andre, who are farming at the farm I inherited and bought last year. And I think the biggest learning there as well has been that we have gotten help with the boundaries so that we have an extra person who understands holistic farming, who makes us sit down, who makes us listen and answer. And we go through really difficult things and really painful moments. And that's when you're kind of like, you feel like you're a failure. And if you're able to sit with that together, you will end up somewhere which is fulfilling for both of us, not only us, but like me, we, and us. So it's for me, it's for we, and it's for us. So yes. And how to do it? Personally, I know, Hedy, you can tell something about the body or breath and mind connection. But my advice would be really starting talking about people who understand holistic management, not only uniting the people, the nature, but also the economics. Because that's a huge pressure that is also burning us out. But I love the fact that, like, after this first year, we went through, like, what did we hate? And then we thought, like, how can we get rid of that? Like, totally. It really changes the perspective. So my recommendation, use the people who understand holistic management, take them almost like your therapist sitting there. Take time to talk difficult things in safe places. That's my experience.
That's really good advice. And I think it's easy to apply it quite broadly too, right? Whether you're farming or not, these moments of reflection and the ability to do them with the other people who are involved, either in the enterprise or the family or who are connected to the system, is going to lead to insights. If nothing else, just the reminder that you're in it together. Because I know, Ole, you were talking about the reoccurring feeling that I can definitely relate to of like, I'm all by myself doing this. And that just adds so much more weight to everything that's already going on. I'm curious if you've considered or worked through some of the things that Hedy and Michaela have already mentioned, because I know how thoughtful you are about this process. In fact, you've already talked about plans to recover and to work ahead of prevention for the next season. Have you considered some of the things that they mentioned? Are those part of your plan?
So yeah, especially the last point with the boundaries. I have a little example there. For me, this very important thing with boundaries is really shifting the mental idea of this boundary of not being a no, but really being protecting your yes. So if you're constantly saying yes to everything, yeah, because I want to do everything at the same time. Believe me, I want to start a worm farm. I want to do this. I want to do a lot of different projects at the same time. And every time somebody comes with an idea how we can improve this river or do whatever, I want to start there. But teams and stuff like this to actually be able to do the work. So yeah, the setting the boundary is really protecting the yes. And a boundary that we set last year, we were starting into the season. We were basically at the same time, like now, a little bit later in February. And in March, our chicken on tour season starts. And last year, we were still planning to do around 5 to 6 deliveries per day for 5 to 6 days a week. And we were paying one person for 40 hours a week to do this work. She was also getting paid through the whole winter while there was no actual work and stuff like this. And then just before the season started, there was some back and forth there, so that we had to like sit down just before the season and re-evaluate the whole chicken on tour business, if we can keep going without that worker or not. And then in one day, from one day to the next, there was this idea of, we don't want our customers, or we don't want to lose our customers that we're delivering the chickens to, because we were quite afraid if we stop doing the chicken rental deliveries, that all the kindergartens and schools and elderly homes will not rent our chickens anymore. But we actually changed that shortly before the season. And now all the kindergartens and schools are just sending their facility management staff to pick up the chickens. So now we cut out a whole transporter. We cut out a 40-hour work week person to do all the deliveries. We cut out all the fuel, all the maintenance, all the other work. And now finally the chicken on tour, the chicken rental, is finally getting more profitable, because now we're down to 8 hours instead of doing so much more work and doing a lot of extra planning work, which was really stressing out my mom, because this was the main thing in the chicken rental business, the deliveries, that was really complex to plan, to get everybody on the same route and make sure that the kindergarten's at the right time and stuff like this. So we cut out a lot of complexity. We cut out 40 paid hours, and now we can just do it on our farm by ourselves, 8 hours a week, and we do the same amount of customers. So protecting this, yes, we still want to do the chicken business, but we don't want to do all the other things, was really helpful to cut a lot of hours out. And we're doing the same reevaluation right now for our vegetable delivery for the farm, because we're doing between 10 and 15 euros per average per box. This is not profitable. We need 30 to 50 euros per box. If we can get the customers there and tell them, yes, if you order 30 euros, then we can deliver. Otherwise, we will stop delivering, and protect our yes in this way, to make sure that we actually can deliver everything for the people coming to the farm, and focus on the things that are really important this season.
Well, these examples that are so specific to what you're going through are hugely useful for framing the concepts that we're talking about and seeing how it actually plays out in somebody's enterprise. I want to go back to this idea that it's so hard to say no, because while I absolutely agree with the framing that you put out there, this idea of protecting your yes, you also mentioned the same thing that I have experience with, is the desire to say yes to everything. Yeah, you want to do all of these projects because you see how they could help others, how they could bring benefit either to your own business or to the community. Maybe, Hedy, you can give me an idea about this internal stress that comes from almost an activist mindset, right? Of this obligation to do good and to show up, and the stress that comes with that. How do you navigate that in your mind and still protect your boundaries and still protect your own health?
That's actually a really good question, because the thing is that it's a mix of this burning activist inside. But I'm going to say something now that might make me unpopular, but that's okay, because it's the truth. We have something to protect ourselves, which is called an ego. Our ego is what drives us to be competitive, to want more, which is actually a different kind of greed, because it makes us impatient. We can't just do one thing and then be patient with that and see it grow and flourish. We want more green stuff, more success, more good things. We get greedy, and that makes us impatient, and that's what makes us have so many things that we can't handle, because it's too much at the same time. So I want to go back to an example you were talking about, Ole, when you had that brief moment before you with the chickens. You had a brief moment of the fear, right? You were afraid of what will happen. Will they all just abandon us? They will abandon us, right? So the same feeling in a one-on-one dynamic can appear with a one and multiple dynamic. And that fear, if you were to get caught up in that fear, that would have kept you stuck in your head, worrying, trying to control the uncontrollable, and seeing the outcome as a personal failure instead of what it just is. It's just not the way you imagined it, so you have to be creative and think in different paths. You didn't get caught up in your fear, which is very admirable. You kept going. You were creative with your thinking. It didn't keep you down. You got back up. And that's the overcoming the fear, because you have to sit with it. Just as Michaela also said, like, you can't avoid it. The uncomfortableness, the feeling that you have to go around the bad stuff. The bad stuff is not bad stuff. The bad stuff is actually what teaches us the things we haven't learned yet. But if we don't see it that way, we will put a label on it as a failure, and we will put a value to that, and we will put that value on ourselves, believing we're not good enough. Well, our effort was not good enough. Our planning was not good enough, when it's not about that. So we limit ourselves And we have to be aware of these things, because if we're not aware of them, we can't change it, because it's a pattern, it's a spiral. We have to break it. It's not going to break itself.
Yeah, there's work to be done there, huh? Michaela, would you like to contribute on this too? How have you found, either for yourself or for your clients or the people that you work with, to navigate this internal desire to do everything all at the same time and help everyone and still somehow draw boundaries and protect your own health?
I come from Finland, where women went through the war as well. So we took care of the farms and we were always okay and we could handle everything, right? I think the balance, as you said, the ego is also needed, but so is your virtue to be found. Virtue being something that you're born with, and all of us being different. I use nature mostly, so I would talk here about biodiversity. Like I don't see all the people there at the moment, but I'm sure we are good at something, and we are really good at something. But is it enough? As you said, Hedy, is that enough? So lots of the times what we are good at and what feels pretty natural, that's probably something we should be doing. Like, let's take an example that where I live, we have bush blueberries and they love it here. But we've been trying to grow tulips for several years, and we probably put into the ground like 300 of them and got maybe 3 up. So it's like if we're satisfied or with what is. And here I also want to add on, because like last year, in a difficult moments in December, I took actually Climate Farmers calendar and I looked at those pictures. And then there is this saying that this farm is a part of something bigger. So that was just like coming to the fact that even I would fail, even I would never succeed, even we, Lisa, Andre, even if we wouldn't make it, we're trying something with other people. So it's a lot of the times like taking both your ego and virtue away first, like coming to the understanding. And even I told this to my father, who never had the chance to farm regeneratively or whatever. He was taught how to do it. He was fucking good at it. And he made it big and producible and blah, blah, blah. But like stop on the fact that even we wouldn't succeed, or we would, the heart will beat and nature will be there and we will be a part of that. And then simply build on top of that. But I think that's something that most of the people come to my classes or to the threshold triatila that I'm sitting in, is just to understand that they are alive, and that's enough. And when you start from there, it is much easier to see through the whole chaos, like what is really my duty in here. And even though I've been talking long, I would like to add one thing, that virtue might be that I love this version in Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the books in yoga, which says that some of us are born with a really, like, you can't compare like somebody does this and somebody does this, but very simple task and simple life. And some of us are made to create something huge, Eiffel Towers and stuff like that. Those are not to be compared. And the one who is building something huge will probably have a lot of experiences, travel and do stuff. But I love the verse in there that the one with this more simple role usually is happier. So either or, you're lucky, because you get to experience, you get to do stuff, or then you just simplify to simplify. So it's, I don't know, I go back to the basics, that I'm alive, and then what?
Very important reflections there on reconnecting with the basics, the things you can be grateful for, and maybe your core motivations for doing this in the first place to prevent being overstretched and eventually reaching burnout. Now, Ole, you've also talked about having an active plan for recovery and prevention for burnout in the next season. Not only have you built some valuable experience, but you've clearly thought a lot about this and coordinated it with your team. Can you tell us about your strategy moving forward to do things a little better next time?
So the 2025 season was really a trial season for us in many instances. Before that, for 2 seasons, we had different gardener. And this season, my brother and I took over the garden and really hit the ground running with 120 subscribers in the beginning of the season and 200 at the end. So there was a lot of just trying to catch up and trying to learn everything at the same time. We've tried a lot of different things in the store as well to figure out what works for us, what works for the customers. We found a good payment system where we take the money from the account directly every single month, and it's always the same 200 families, which makes this easier. So we're trying to make everything, all the administration side, as easy as possible so that we can focus on the things that are really important. And right now in the winter season, we get all the vegetables delivered from other farms. So right now I don't actually have to work a lot. I have maybe 1 to 2 days of actual hard work in the winter, sometimes shoveling some snow and stuff like this. But right now it's really the rest and recovery season. So I signed up for the gym. I'm going there twice, sometimes 3 times a week. I'm doing some sauna, I'm doing some yoga, I'm doing some stretching, I'm doing longer walks in the winter with my dog to get and keep some of that fitness. I'm trying new recipes and trying to get back into cooking there a bit, already get some good ideas for the season, what we can do in that regard, and really trying to focus in on what is my personal ikigai, this concept of this intersection of what you're good at, what society needs, and what brings you joy. And for me, that is having this connection with the customers. So for this season, I'm definitely gonna be working a bit more in store. So having more of that connection with the customer that I had the year before with the deliveries. Also trying to have only 2 high power working days a week where I'm doing really high intensity workout basically while working during the season, and then do 1 day after do the less stress day, so that I will, for instance, be at Chicken on Tour, just giving out the chicken houses to people, which is an easy task to do. You're just standing around talking with people and telling them what to do. And then on the next day, it's carrot harvest again. And then you're in it and really working and really planning the week a bit better this season. My mother is also joining us full time for the summer. She is quitting the teaching position and doing more of the teaching directly on the farm. So also again, trying to lower that administration burden on my mother with all the teaching stuff. Now she's just teaching on the farm to try to reduce all the unnecessary things that are not actually helping the end consumer or the child in the teaching space. So really trying to organize everything a little bit better. We're gonna build now a tool shed right next to the field and not a little bit off, so that we have shorter walking ways, build a better pack and wash station, so that we gonna hopefully save some time and stress there. But I think the main thing that will really help a lot with the stress from last season is having a bit more of a clear idea where we're heading as a farm, having a bit more clear financial plan. I have to say we're a bit, as a family and organization, a bit more complex, because we're not just a farm, we're doing a lot of different things. So that's still a little bit hard. We're still working on trying to figure out what is the things that are actually making us a lot of money, which are we actually paying for, stuff like this. So trying to get the planning better and trying to cut maybe 10-15% of the hours off this year just in the garden.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've done a lot of thinking about this, and I'm probably going to try and integrate a couple of these ideas as well while there's maneuverability in the down season. Hedy, perhaps building on some of these ideas that Ole mentioned, can you give some advice or some ideas for tools or techniques that others can use to help to not only recover from burnout, but perhaps prevent it in the future as well?
Definitely. So I have worked on a framework that I call the resonance field. This is very effective because it's very simple. It has 3 key cores, and these 3 key cores is not a tool, it's not something you carry with you physically or something you have to remember that bad. It's a state of mind that you have to want to be in. The 3 key cores is acceptance. I want this, so I accept whatever outcome comes with it. I accept the ups and the downs. I accept that I do my best. I accept if it succeeds or fails. I accept it all because it's what I want. So when you accept it, you stop worrying because you accept you will have setbacks, you will have downfalls, you will get back up and you will continue. That gives you the opportunity to not be in your head with your worries about the future or all the things that usually fit up in your head. You don't have to do that anymore because you accepted it, no matter what it is, right? It's what you want. So now you can be present in the moment. That's the second core key, being present. So first we learn how to accept so we can be more present whenever it's needed, which is most all the time, but that's hard for most of us because we're in our heads. But being aware of this, we can be present so we can make great decisions. We can be creative. We can be authentic. We don't have to think too much about it because we are here now. We are not 2 months or 2 years ahead, and we are not 3 months behind. We are here now. And I accept whatever comes. And then the last one, which is the most important one, especially for farmers, patience. A lot of patience, because that's what most people lack. And when we lack patience, even when we think we believe in ourselves and we know we did our best, if we have an idea of how the outcome might turn out or how long it's going to take, we try to control the outcome. And if it doesn't turn out that way, if it takes longer than we anticipated, we're going to run out of patience. And that's where we start doubting ourselves or start panicking and try to fix things and figure out solutions instead of just keep being patient, trusting that I did my best. Anything other than that is out of my control. So back to the acceptance again. So the accepting, being present, and patient. And it's hard. It sounds easy, but it's very, very hard. I am aware of that. But just as well as we can wake up and have a bad day for no reason, we can decide to have a good day for no reason, if that metaphor made sense.
Absolutely. That's really valuable advice for so many things in life. I think the practice and the cultivation of that mindset can help anyone. Michaela, can you add to that? Can you give us some ideas of techniques or practices or tools that you've found help with either managing or avoiding burnout?
Yeah, well, rituals, that's one thing, just creating something to your everyday life. And for me, it's been more that most of the people have those rituals already, or they would have them really close by. So not like figuring out that every day I will do 20 minutes this or this, but start with the fact that you will realize your own rituals. And when you're gone away from them, one of them can be like taking out your dog and being present with that. Maybe if you have a bus ride, just instead of scrolling, like put your phone down and look out from the window, like small, simple things. People who haven't been meditating, if you hunt or spend time in the forest, look at the lake, just be present there. And I think one important thing I would like to add here that both of my yoga teacher and more in like generations of wisdom and nature connection teacher, both of them agree on that the future is in communities and the healing will be in communities as well. So a lot of the times we are asked to change our lives and do things and take control of this. And I would ask us to also sit down with the fact that there is like me and then we. So who is your we? Like, who are the closest ones to you? And just sit with the gratitude of those ones. And I mean, the nature is your partner in crime here. And one of my favorite scientists in Finland called Soja Sadeharju is making her PhD about the intuition that farmers have in decision making. And her last paper was about nature being your partner. So who is we? Who is you at your farm? Who is we? And how do you heal we? And that's what we are doing. We are growing soil. We are like healing soil, and it's the whole community there. And then who is us? And there I come to the fact with climate farmers, and that helps me to be a smaller part. So in the end, I'm actually so tiny of this whole process, but so needed. I'm part of something bigger. And again, then it's easier to accept, as Hedi said there, and let go. And while you do that, then you're pretty clear, like, what is the next shift you need to do? So it's not about we could just sit down and float somewhere, but it gives the easiness, the alignment that we can do it. And today I'm too tired. Please help me. Dare to ask help. That's one thing I had so many years I struggled with, even with my husband. While you give your partner the space to love you, when you tell them, I need you, today I need you, you give space to love. And it's awesome when you learn that, because then it starts to flow. Yep.
Those are beautiful words to wrap up my portion of this, but I want to open it up now to listener questions. So if anybody has a question, I will prioritize the people who put up their hand digitally. You can do that with the reaction. Well, that wraps up this week's episode. But before you go, I want to invite you to participate in the conversations around the topics that we explored just now. Though we highlighted a few different perspectives, there's so much more to discuss. So if you know someone who would benefit from listening to this episode, be sure to share it with them. The best way to connect with us and the wider community is through the Climate Farmers community. Now, if you're an active farmer anywhere in Europe, you can join the community for free through our website at climatefarmers.org. We also have a growing list of resources to help farmers successfully transition to regenerative management on our resource page, where you'll find a free water management guide, the Academy's learning ecosystem, farmer profiles on our members map, coach matching, and much more. For everyone else, you can participate by reaching out to us on LinkedIn or Instagram, either on the Climate Farmers accounts or with me directly. I regularly invite collaborators to join me on steering and development calls for these episodes, so just drop me a line. Until next time, just remember, it takes everybody, no matter their abilities, experience, or skill set, to build a regenerative future. What will your contribution